One of the biggest complaints that we all have against the mainstream media, and this is especially prevalent in sports media, is the lack of authenticity. We are presented with so much garbage every day, so much false bravado, outright lies, and propaganda. Sometimes it's difficult to determine who's real and who's fake. I think most of these people are 100% fake. They're no different than actors on a daytime soap opera. These people are paid big money to play a role, play a part. I often call Stephen A. Smith the world's highest paid parrot. The Stephen A. that we see on ESPN bloviating about mythical racism, it's not the same Stephen A. Smith that we see on Fox News or even on his podcast. One of the problems when you lack authenticity, your gimmick can only last for so long. It always has an expiration date. People will often credit Howard Stern's success to his ability to be shocking. Now, the shock factor, that might have been what attracted listeners initially, but you don't remain successful on radio for over 40 years just by shocking people. The shock eventually wears off. Howard Stern was able to maintain his success because for the longest time, he was authentic. When you're working in television and radio, there is immense pressure to draw ratings. Now, there is a short-term way to draw an audience and a long-term way. The long-term path is be yourself, refusing to become a caricature, a gimmick, allowing your audience to watch you grow organically. Then you have the short-term path, orchestrating fake controversy, fake arguments, constantly being over the top, false bravado. Now, while this may work initially, if you don't have any substance behind it, the audience will eventually disappear. Over the last couple of months, I have accused Shay Shay and Skippy Bebe of orchestrating fake arguments in a failed attempt to increase ratings for Undisputedly Woke. Last Tuesday, Shay was supposedly so upset with his bae that he refused to show up to work. All day last Tuesday, there was all this speculation surrounding Shay Shay Sharp. Did he quit? Are Shay and Bae getting divorced? Last Wednesday, the triumphant return of Shay Shay increased the audience of Undisputedly Woke by just 65,000 viewers. By Thursday, they were back well below 200,000. The gimmick lasted just for one show and barely increased the audience. My theory on Shay and Bae creating controversy for ratings is just that. It's a theory, it's speculation. But earlier this week, we were given proof that struggling, desperate hosts will do anything to boost their ratings. ESPN Radio in New York City is being absolutely destroyed in the ratings by WFAN. When I say destroyed, I'm talking about WFAN drawing 3, sometimes 4 times the audience of ESPN Radio. Michael Kay has been the flagship host on ESPN Radio in New York for the past 20 years. For most of the last 20 years, he's been able to compete with WFAN, sometimes even beating them in the ratings. But over the last 12, maybe 18 months, Michael Kay and ESPN Radio have become a non-factor in New York City. I doubt WFAN even considers them to be competition anymore. ESPN Radio is like a mosquito on an elephant's ass. Instead of Michael Kay figuring out a way to recapture his lost audience by, I don't know, being interesting, being different, he decides to launch a fake war against some unknown producer on the morning drive show on ESPN Radio. Last Friday, some dude named Ray Santiago, who is the producer on the morning drive show no one listens to, he went on what I believe was a fake tirade against Michael Kay. He was criticizing Michael Kay for getting his ass kicked in the ratings on a daily basis. Now, this verbal assault, which was actually based in truth, but this verbal assault prompted Michael Kay to put on his false bravado mask and issue a threat. Don't fuck with me, I'm Michael Kay. I hereby threaten you with supersized cucumber insertion without the benefit of Preparation H. Watch for yourself.
We at war as a show now between us and the K Show because
Yes.
it seems like it's not stopping and
Everybody at the station.
It's getting a little bit
they
personal.
can't help it.
I mean, I've got to throw this out there. Is it the fear that this show is now on the rise and that show's kind of going in the other direction? But I think it's getting a little little personal over there. And if I'm going to keep taking shots, maybe they should take a couple as well.
Ray Santiago made a comment about ratings and the way the show. Wow. Do you realize, Ray? Let me look. This camera right here.
Ray,
give me the one shot. Do you realize, Ray, that all I'd have to do?
Oh no.
All I would have to do is make one phone call, and you would be on the unemployment line.
Oh, my.
You have the nerve to say something like that about this show? One phone call, which I am considering making, and you will be fired. Do you realize that?
First of all, what kind of fucking threat was that? You're threatening to get me fired from ESPN? That's not a threat, that's a gift. If I was so desperate for money that I was forced to take a job at ESPN, I would be begging them to fire me. I would rather work the door at the Shaggin' Dragon than work at the worldwide leader in woke. And what was all that moaning from Peter Beater Rosenberg? Was he sitting there spanking his wanker while other dudes were talking? I'll make one phone call and get your ass fired. Oh, Mike just referenced the male rectum. Keep going, Michael. I'm falling in love with your false bravado. Oh. You want to know why ESPN is struggling on both radio and television? They keep hiring people like the Peter Beater, some dude in his 40s who spends his free time watching oiled-up men in spandex get into a pretend fight. Wouldn't surprise me if ESPN gave him a promotion to WNBA analyst. If he likes to watch men pretend wrestle, I am sure he'd have a permanent stiffy watching dudes pretend to play basketball. But anyway, keep in mind, Michael Kay, he's not going after someone at a competing radio station. This is supposedly an internal war between two dudes at ESPN Radio. Now, after this aired last Friday, the story was picked up by the mainstream media. Mediaite, the New York Post, God Awful Announcing, all picked up the story. ESPN Radio, they haven't generated headlines in years? The first time I heard about ESPN Radio in a while was last month when the New York Post published a report detailing how badly they were getting their ass kicked in the ratings. This story right here is actually a new trend for ESPN Radio in New York. They finally managed to generate national headlines based on something that happened on the air. Who cares if it was an orchestrated fight, right? There's no such thing as bad press. All of this attention, though, it had Michael Kay real mad. Ooh, I'm so bitter. Why am I getting the media attention that I have been begging for? Tuesday, he decided to address the manufacturer controversy that he created on a show that no one listens to. Mikey and Petey, they just could not believe, they couldn't understand why people in the mainstream media thought this manufacturer controversy was real. I initially came across this story last weekend. I was looking for topics. This was the lead story in the Mediaite sports section. Back then, I decided to pass on it, talked about Olivia Dunn instead. Why? Because I knew all this was bullshit. Tuesday, Michael, Peter Beater, they decided to educate their audience along with the media on what exactly was happening behind the scenes. Now, I want you to pay close attention to what Peter Rosenberg says. Remember, this dude is in his 40s, okay? Roll the film.
If people only knew what people do behind the scenes and really do stuff like that.
Well, exactly. That's the thing. People don't realize, the kind of checkers you'd be playing if what you said on the air was actually real?
I'd be a moron.
Yeah, it would be. It's sometimes it's sort of like the people who cover wrestling.
Right.
A lot of the quote journalists who cover wrestling, they know that it's performance. Mm-hmm. They do. Mm-hmm. But then, a wrestler will lose a match, and they'll start speculating on how upset the wrestler is. And I'm like, I don't think you understand that they know the job they're doing. You don't.
Yeah, but I understand that, though. They could still be upset that they were written to lose.
Sure, every once in a while that can happen. Right. But, in a lot of circumstances, it's like, no, they're happy the match went off well. That's it.
Anybody believe the story that Michael did that on the air was real are the same people that beat soap opera stars with handbags outside the studio thinking that they're actually the character they play.
Wow.
There you have it. There it is. They openly admitted This was not real. This was all pretend, guys. I'm not dumb enough to play checkers. I'm smart. I'm Michael Kay. I play chess. Some in the media, they are claiming that Michael Kay is backtracking here. They're claiming that he is backing down to pressure that he received for threatening to get this kid fired. Now, perhaps that is true, but I ain't buying it. Call me a skeptic, call me a conspiracy theorist. I believe this entire controversy was staged by ESPN to boost their ratings. The problem with doing that, what's next? What do you do next? Maybe this spiked ratings on Monday and Tuesday, but after the controversy subsides, you're still left with an aging Michael Kay and a bald wanker spanker who moans on air when other men are speaking. Speaking of Peter Rosenberg, did you hear what he just said? He compared the media reaction to this manufactured controversy to journalists who cover professional wrestling. These wrestling journalists, they write these stories thinking wrestling is real. They fail to understand these fights are staged. Guys like me, we don't watch wrestling for the pretend violence. We tune in to see these oiled up men rub all over each other, wishing that we were in the ring with them. Are you fucking kidding me? You expect me to believe that the grown men who cover WWE for a living don't realize that it's rigged? That other old dude, he compared it to soap operas, claiming people are waiting outside the studio hitting actors with their purses. Where does that happen? I have yet to see one report of angry grannies waiting outside the studio in Los Angeles, wanting to beat some actor up with their purse. ESPN Radio, what a fall from grace. ESPN Radio used to be a juggernaut. 15 years ago, they didn't have to use theatrics in an attempt to draw ratings. They were able to draw ratings because they had actual talent behind the microphone. Mike and Mike, Dan Patrick, Colin Cowherd, Will Kane, Dan Le Batard. I was never real big on Dan Le Batard, but I can't take away from the fact that the guy's entertaining. Colin Cowherd, he used to be one of the best in the business. ESPN went from guys like that to Peter Beater Rosenberg. No wonder they're struggling. They're also struggling because ESPN is not authentic. Look at this situation right here from both angles. First angle, this entire argument was staged to boost ratings. Fake, inauthentic. The second angle, this was all real. Michael Kay became overly emotional on the air, threatened to get this dude fired. 72 hours later, he claims he was just playing a role, that he wasn't being serious. He was just trying to be entertaining. Either way, it's all bullshit. It's not real. People are starved for authenticity. Who is authentic at ESPN? The ones like Sage Steele who are real, who mean what they say. ESPN, they silence them. Give me your thoughts. Michael Kay admits that his on-air tirade was not real. Do you think this entire thing was staged by ESPN Radio, or do you think Michael Kay saw the reporting in the media and is using that as an excuse, meaning he really did threaten to fire the dude, then back down from the pressure? Like I said, either way, it's all bullshit. But let me know what you think. Sound off in the comments below. Make sure to like and subscribe. Click the notification bell to receive all notifications from the channel. Best way to contact me is by email at btlkc84@gmail.com. KC_BTL84 on Twitter. I'll see you guys later.